Jake Morrison stared at his empty apartment and checked his bank account for the third time that morning. The numbers had not changed. He needed a roommate, and he needed one fast. The rent in New Angeles had gone crazy since the aliens arrived. 3 years ago, everyone wanted to live in the first contact city. Jake made good money as an aerospace engineer, but not good enough to afford a 2-bedroom place by himself. His phone buzzed. Ryan Burke, his best friend, was calling. "Hey, Jake, I found someone for your place," Ryan said. He worked at the Interspecies Housing Authority, helping aliens find homes on Earth. "Great, when can they move in?" Jake asked. "Well, there's something you should know first. She's Zephyrian." Jake almost dropped his phone. "An alien?" "Ryan, I don't know anything about living with aliens." "Come on, man. They're not that different from us. This one is a scientist just like you. Her name is Lyra. She needs a place while she does research here." Jake walked to his window and looked out at the city. He could see a few alien ships in the sky, small ones that the government allowed for personal use. 3 years ago, first contact had changed everything. Now aliens walked the streets like it was normal. "What's she studying?" Jake asked. "Human cities. Something about how we adapt to change. Look, she pays well and she's clean. Plus, she'll probably be at work most of the time." Jake thought about his empty savings account. "Okay, when does she want to see the place?" "How about tonight?" That evening, Jake cleaned his apartment twice. He had no idea what aliens expected from human homes. He put away anything that might seem weird and made sure the place smelled normal. The doorbell rang at 7 o'clock exactly. Jake opened the door and saw his first Zephyrian up close. Lyra was tall, maybe 6 feet, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow softly in the hallway light. Her hair was white and moved slightly, like it was underwater. Her eyes were large and silver, and when she smiled, Jake could see that her teeth were perfectly white but sharper than human teeth. "You must be Jake," she said. Her voice was smooth and had a slight accent he could not place. "I am Lyra. Thank you for meeting with me." "Come in," Jake said, stepping aside. He watched as she looked around his living room, her silver eyes taking in everything. "This is nice," she said. "Very human." Jake was not sure if that was good or bad. "Want to see the rest?" He showed her the kitchen, bathroom, and the spare bedroom. She asked practical questions about utilities and internet. She seemed more normal than he had expected. "The bedroom faces east," Jake explained. "Gets good morning light." "Actually, I prefer darkness during the day," Lyra said. "My people are naturally nocturnal. I hope that will not be a problem." "Oh, no, that's fine." Jake made a mental note to buy blackout curtains. They sat in the living room to talk about details. Lyra pulled out a tablet that looked more advanced than anything Jake had seen. "I can pay 3 months in advance," she said. "I do not party or make loud noises. I keep my space clean. I do have some dietary needs that might seem unusual to you." "What kind of dietary needs?" "My people require certain minerals that are not common in human food. I will need to keep supplements in the refrigerator. They glow slightly, but they are not dangerous." Jake nodded. "Glowing food. Sure, why not?" "I work mostly at night," Lyra continued. "I study human behavior in urban environments. During the day I will be in my room or at the university. We should not disturb each other much." "Sounds good to me," Jake said. "When would you want to move in?" "Tomorrow, if possible. I am currently staying at a temporary facility, and it is quite noisy." They worked out the practical details. Lyra transferred the money to his account right there, using her tablet. Jake watched his bank balance jump to a comfortable number. "One more thing," Lyra said as she stood to leave. "My people have some customs that might seem strange. We mark our territory with scent. Nothing you can smell, but it helps us feel secure. Is that acceptable?" "Sure," Jake said, though he was not entirely sure what that meant. After she left, Jake called Ryan. "How did it go?" Ryan asked. "She seems nice, a little formal but nice. She's moving in tomorrow." "See? Told you it would be fine. Aliens are just people, Jake. Different people but still people." The next day, Lyra arrived with 3 small boxes and 1 large container that hummed softly. She did not need help carrying anything, which surprised Jake since some of the boxes looked heavy. "What's in the container?" he asked. "Environmental controls," she said. "My room will need to be cooler and more humid than the rest of the apartment. The container regulates." That Jake watched her set up her room. She moved quickly and efficiently, like everything had been planned out ahead of time. Her belongings were strange but not scary. Some kind of silver fabric that seemed to move on its own. A few devices that glowed softly. Books that looked like they were made of metal. That first week was awkward. Jake would come home from work to find the apartment empty and quiet. Sometimes he would hear soft sounds from Lyra's room during the day, but nothing loud. At night, he could hear her moving around, but she was careful not to make noise. They left notes for each other about practical things. Lyra needed the thermostat, turned down. Jake asked her to keep the glowing food on one shelf of the refrigerator. She apologized for using his internet so much. He told her not to worry about it. Slowly, they started talking more. Jake would sometimes stay up late, and Lyra would be making her version of coffee in the kitchen. She was curious about his work, and he found her research interesting. "You study how humans adapt?" Jake asked one night. "Yes, your species is remarkable in that way. Most beings resist change. Humans seem to embrace it." "I don't know about that. Plenty of humans hate change." "But look at your city," Lyra said, gesturing toward the window. 3 years ago, you had never seen my kind. Now we live and work together. Your species made that adjustment faster than anyone expected." Jake had not thought about it that way. "I guess we did. That is what I study. How humans adapt so quickly to new situations. It is a rare trait in the galaxy." After a month, they had developed a routine. Jake would leave coffee made for when Lyra got up in the evening. She would leave human food in the refrigerator for him. Things she had learned. He liked. They started watching movies together on weekends, though Lyra needed subtitles to understand some of the cultural references. Jake found himself looking forward to their conversations. Lyra had a different way of seeing things that made him think. She was smart and funny, though her humor was sometimes hard to understand. "This arrangement is working well," she said one evening as they shared takeout Chinese food. "Yeah, it is," Jake agreed. "I was worried it would be weird, living with an alien." "Were you afraid I would eat you?" Lyra asked with what Jake had. Learned was her version of a grin. "Maybe a little," Jake admitted. "I do not eat meat," Lyra said. "My people evolved from plant eaters, though I have heard humans taste terrible anyway." Jake laughed, and for the first time since she moved in, it felt completely natural. 3 months after Lyra moved in, Jake noticed she was acting different. It started small. Lyra had always been polite and careful about shared spaces. Now she would stand in the doorway of Jake's bedroom, just watching him. When he asked what she needed, she would blink slowly and walk away without saying anything. She also started rearranging things in the apartment. Jake would come home to find his coffee mugs moved to a different cabinet. His books would be stacked in new places. When he asked about it, Lyra would look confused. "I did not move your things," she would say. But Jake knew she was the only other person with access to the apartment. The bigger change was how she acted around him. Lyra had always been calm and controlled. Now she seemed restless. She would pace around the living room at night, her movements quick and sharp. Sometimes Jake would catch her staring at him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "Are you okay?" he asked one evening. Lyra was standing by the window looking out at the city. Her pale blue skin seemed brighter than usual. "I am fine," she said, but her voice sounded tight. "Why do you ask?" "You seem different lately, more tense." Lyra turned to look at him. Her silver eyes seemed to glow in the dim light. "I am simply adjusting to life on your planet. It takes time." But Jake had been living with her for months now. This was not adjustment. This was something new. The next day, Jake came home to find one of his kitchen chairs broken. Not just broken, crushed. The metal legs were bent and twisted like someone with incredible strength had grabbed them. "Lyra?" he called out. She emerged from her room, moving faster than usual. Yes? What happened to the chair? Lyra looked at the broken furniture and her eyes widened. I do not know. Perhaps it was defective. Jake picked up one of the twisted metal legs. It would take serious force to bend steel like this. Lyra, did you break this? She stopped and touched her forehead. I do not remember. I may have bumped into it. Bumped into it, look at this thing, it's completely destroyed. Lyra stared at the chair pieces. Her skin had gotten brighter, and Jake noticed that her breathing seemed faster than normal. I will pay for a replacement, she said quickly, then went back to her room. Jake stood there holding the twisted metal, trying to figure out what could have caused this kind of damage. He had seen Lyra lift heavy things before, but nothing that suggested this level of strength. That weekend, Jake's ex-girlfriend Amy came over for dinner. Amy was a marine biologist, and one of the few people who was not fascinated by his alien roommate situation. She thought the whole thing was a bad idea. You don't know anything about her species, Amy had said when Lyra first moved in. What if she's dangerous? Now, watching Lyra during dinner, Amy's concerns seemed more reasonable. Lyra was trying to be social, but something was clearly wrong. She kept gripping her fork too tightly, leaving small dents in the metal. When Amy asked about her research, Lyra's answers were short and distracted. The human-urban environment is complex, Lyra said, but she was looking at Jake instead of Amy. Humans adapt to change in ways that are difficult to predict. That must be interesting to study, Amy said politely. Lyra nodded but did not elaborate. She was still staring at Jake with that intense look he had been noticing more often. After Amy left, she pulled Jake aside in the hallway. There's something wrong with her, Amy said quietly. What do you mean? I work with animal behavior, Jake. I know when something is acting territorial or aggressive. Your roommate is showing signs of both. Aggressive? Lyra's never been aggressive. Maybe, not toward you, but she watched me like I was a threat all evening. And did you see how she was gripping things? She's either very stressed or going through some kind of biological change. Jake thought about the broken chair and the rearranged furniture. What kind of change? I don't know. But if I were you, I'd find out. Soon. That night, Jake could not sleep. He kept thinking about Amy's warning and all the strange things he had noticed. Around 2 a.m, he heard voices from Lyra's room. At first, he thought she was watching something, but then he realized she was talking to someone. Her voice sounded angry, which was unusual for her. She was speaking in her own language, so Jake could not understand the words, but the tone was clear. She was arguing with someone. The conversation went on for almost an hour. Jake heard Lyra's voice getting louder and more upset. At one point, she said something that sounded almost like a growl, then everything went quiet. The next morning, Jake decided to do some research. He went to the university library and looked up everything he could find about Zephyrians. There was not much public information. Most of what he found was basic stuff about their appearance and general culture. They were described as peaceful and intelligent, with advanced technology and strong social bonds. But Jake noticed something interesting. Several articles mentioned that there were aspects of Zephyrian biology that were not well understood by humans. Their government had been selective about what information they shared during first contact. One research paper caught his attention. It was written by Dr. Elena Vasquez, a xenobiologist who had worked with the first Zephyrian visitors. The paper mentioned that Zephyrians had complex biological cycles that affected their behavior, but it did not give details. Jake found Dr. Vasquez's contact information and sent her an email. I am living with a Zephyrian who has been showing unusual behavior lately, he wrote. She seems more aggressive and territorial than usual. Is this something I should be concerned about? Dr. Vasquez replied within a few hours. Can you meet me at my office tomorrow? I think we need to talk in person about your situation. That evening, Lyra was even stranger than before. Jake found her in the living room, standing very still in the middle of the space. Her skin was brighter than he had ever seen it, almost glowing. Lyra? Are you all right? She turned to look at him. Her eyes seemed different, larger somehow and very focused. "Jake," she said. Her voice sounded rougher than usual. "I need to tell you something important." "Okay." But then she just stood there staring at him. Jake could see her hands were shaking slightly. "What is it?" he asked. She started, then stopped. She touched her forehead again, the same gesture he had noticed when she broke the chair. "I cannot. Not yet. Lyra, you're scaring me a little bit. What's going on?" "I am not trying to frighten you," she said. "I would never want to harm you. You have been kind to me." "Harm me? Why would you harm me?" Lyra looked at him for a long moment. Then she turned and walked quickly back to her room. Jake heard her lock the door, something she had never done before. He stood in the living room, trying to process what had just happened. Lyra had never talked about harming anyone before. She was a scientist, peaceful and careful. But something was definitely changing. Jake looked around the apartment. Several things had been moved again. His jacket was hanging in a different closet. His favorite coffee mug was sitting on the counter in a spot where he never left it. For the first time since Lyra moved in, Jake felt nervous about being alone with her. The next morning, Jake went to meet Dr. Vasquez at her office. She was a middle-aged woman with tired eyes and gray hair. Her office was filled with books about alien biology and pictures of various non-human species. "Tell me about your roommate's behavior," she said. Jake described everything he had noticed: the broken chair, the rearranged objects, the intense staring, and the argument he had overheard. Dr. Vasquez listened carefully, making notes. When Jake finished, she sat back in her chair. "How long has she been living with you?" she asked. "About 3 months." "And when did the behavior changes start?" "Maybe 2 weeks ago." Dr. Vasquez nodded slowly. "I was afraid of this," she said. "Afraid of what?" "Your roommate may be entering a biological cycle that her government did not tell us about during first contact. It's something we've suspected but never confirmed." "What kind of cycle?" "I can't say for certain without examining her, but based on your description, she may be approaching what humans would call a mating season." Jake felt his stomach drop. A mating season? Zephyrians are very private about their reproductive biology. They've never shared details with us, but we've noticed patterns in their behavior that suggest they go through periodic biological changes that affect their aggression levels and territorial instincts. "Is that dangerous?" Dr. Vasquez looked at him seriously. "I don't know, that's what worries me." Jake came home from his meeting with Dr. Vasquez feeling worried and confused. He found Lyra in the kitchen, but she looked different than he had ever seen her. Her blue skin was much brighter now, almost glowing. There were darker blue patterns on her arms and face that Jake had never noticed before. When she moved, she seemed bigger somehow, more solid. "Hello, Jake," she said. Her voice was deeper than usual. "Hi, Lyra. How was your day?" She looked at him with those intense silver eyes. "We need to talk." They sat in the living room, but Lyra could not seem to stay still. She kept shifting in her chair, and Jake noticed that her hands were gripping the armrests hard enough to leave marks in the wood. "I have not been honest with you," she said. "About what?" "About why I am here. About what I am studying. About what is happening to me now." Jake waited for her to continue. "My people, the Zephyrians, we have a biological cycle that happens every 7 years. It is similar to what some animals on your planet experience, but more complex. We call it the awakening." "A mating season?" Lyra looked surprised. "You know about this?" "I talked to a scientist today. She thought that might be what was happening to you." Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes. During the awakening, we become stronger, more territorial, more intense. It is a time when we seek mates and establish bonds for the next 7 years." Jake felt uncomfortable. "Okay, so what does this mean for our living situation?" "That is the problem," Lyra said. "Normally, my people return to our home world during the awakening. We have special facilities there, places where we can go through the process safely with others of our kind. Why didn't you go home? Lyra was quiet for a long moment. I cannot return home right now. There are political complications with my family. I was sent to Earth partially as punishment, but also to protect me. Protect you from what? My father was involved in something that made our government angry. I am guilty by association. If I return home during the awakening, I will be forced to mate with someone chosen by the government as punishment. Jake was starting to understand. So you're stuck here? Yes. And humans have never dealt with a Zephyrian during the awakening. Before, I do not know what will happen to me, or to you. As if to demonstrate her point, Lyra stood up too quickly and accidentally put her hand through the coffee table. The wood splintered around her fingers. Sorry, she said, pulling her hand back. I'm having trouble controlling my strength. Jake looked at the broken table. How strong are you going to get? Much stronger. The awakening enhances all of our physical abilities. Strength, speed, senses. It is meant to help us compete for mates and defend our territory. Territory, Jake repeated, thinking about all the things she had been moving around the apartment. Yes, I have been unconsciously marking this space as mine. The scent marking I told you about when I first moved in? It has become much stronger. To another Zephyrian, this entire apartment would smell like it belongs to me now. Jake tried to process this information. What else should I expect? I do not know, Lyra admitted. This has never happened before. Zephyrians do not go through the awakening away from our home world. I am in uncharted territory. That night, Jake called Ryan to tell him what was happening. Dude, that's intense, Ryan said. What are you gonna do? I don't know. She can't help what's happening to her, and she doesn't have anywhere else to go. But is it safe for you to stay there? I think so. She doesn't seem dangerous to me, specifically. More like she's trying to protect me. Protect you from what? I'm not sure yet. The next few days were strange and tense. Lyra's changes were accelerating. She grew several inches taller and gained muscle mass. Her skin got brighter and the dark patterns became more visible. She started making low humming sounds when she was relaxed, and growling sounds when she was frustrated. Her eyes changed too. They got larger and seemed to glow softly in dim light. When she looked at Jake, her gaze was so intense it made him feel like she could see right through him. The apartment started to smell different. Jake could not identify the scent, but it was everywhere. It was not unpleasant, just very noticeable and definitely not human. Lyra tried to explain what she was experiencing. Everything is more intense, she told Jake one evening. Colors are brighter, sounds are louder, I can smell things I never noticed before. What do you smell? You, she said simply. I can smell your emotions. When you are worried, when you are tired, when you are happy. It is very distracting. Jake found this both fascinating and unsettling. What do I smell like when I'm worried? Sharp, like metal and salt. That night, Jake was woken up by sounds from Lyra's room. It sounded like she was moving furniture around, heavy things being dragged across the floor. In the morning, he found scratch marks in the wooden floor of the hallway outside her room. They looked like claw marks, but deeper than any animal could make. Lyra? He called through her door. Do not come in, she said quickly. I am not presentable right now. Are you okay? I am changing. It is not pleasant to look at. Jake spent that day at work trying to research Zephyrian biology, but there was still very little information available. What he did find was not encouraging. One scientific paper mentioned that some alien species became extremely dangerous during reproductive cycles. When he got home, he found Lyra sitting in the living room. She looked more alien than ever. Her skin was bright blue now, almost electric. The dark patterns covered most of her visible skin in complex designs. She had gotten taller again, and her proportions looked different. But the biggest change was her eyes. They were much larger now and glowed with silver light. When she looked at him, Jake felt like she was seeing things about him that he did not even know about himself. How do you feel? He asked. Powerful, she said. And hungry, but not for food. What are you hungry for? Lyra looked at him for a long moment. Connection, bonding. The awakening makes us crave deep emotional and physical bonds with others. Jake felt heat rise in his cheeks. Oh, do not worry, Lyra said quickly. I know you are not Zephyrian. I am not expecting anything from you. But the biological drive is very strong. It is difficult to ignore. That evening, there was a knock at their door. Jake opened it to find another Zephyrian standing in the hallway. This one was shorter than Lyra, but clearly going through the same changes. Her skin was bright yellow instead of blue. I am Kira, she said. I am looking for Lyra. She's here, Jake said. Lyra, someone's here to see you. Lyra came to the door and her whole body tensed. When she saw Kira, What are you doing here? Lyra asked in a voice that sounded almost like a growl. I came to help you, Kira said. Your commander told me what happened. You cannot go through the awakening alone, especially not around humans. I am fine, Lyra said, but Jake could see that her hands were clenched into fists. You are not fine. Look at yourself. You are barely in control, and you are putting this human in danger. I would never hurt Jake. Not intentionally. But during the awakening, we are not fully in control of our actions. You know this. Jake stepped between them. Maybe you should come inside and talk about this. But as soon as Kira stepped into the apartment, both Zephyrians reacted strongly. Lyra moved to block Kira from going further into the room. Kira's yellow skin got brighter and she made a low hissing sound. You have marked this entire space, Kira said, looking around. No wonder you do not want to leave. You have claimed territory. This is my home now, Lyra said. It is not your home. It is his home. And you are putting him in danger by being here during the awakening. Jake looked back and forth between the two aliens. They were both tense and aggressive, like two animals facing off over territory. What kind of danger? He asked. Kira looked at him seriously. During the awakening, Zephyrians become extremely protective of their territory and their chosen companions. If anyone threatens what we perceive as ours, we can become violent. Very violent. Lyra wouldn't hurt anyone. Not normally, no, but right now she is not thinking normally. Her biology is in control, not her mind. Lyra was staring at Kira with glowing eyes. You need to leave. Now. I am not leaving without you. Commander Zeth sent me to bring you back to the ship. I am not going anywhere with you. The tension in the room was thick. Jake could feel that something bad was about to happen. Maybe we should all calm down and discuss this rationally, he said. Both Zephyrians looked at him. For a moment, Lyra's expression softened. You are right, she said. I apologize. The awakening makes it difficult to think clearly. But Kira was not interested in calming down. There is nothing to discuss. You are coming back to the ship where you can go through the awakening safely. I told you. I cannot return to our people, right now. Then you will go through it on the ship away from humans. Commander Zeth has prepared a special area for you. Lyra's skin got even brighter. I am not going anywhere. That's when Jake realized that the situation was more complicated than he had thought. This was not just about biology. This was about Lyra's freedom to choose her own path. And judging by the way both aliens were looking at each other, it was about to become a fight. The fight between Lyra and Kira started suddenly and was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. Kira moved first, lunging toward Lyra with incredible speed. Lyra caught her in midair and they both crashed into Jake's bookshelf, destroying it completely. Books and broken wood scattered across the floor. Jake pressed himself against the wall, trying to stay out of the way. The two Zephyrians were moving so fast he could barely follow their movements. They were strong enough to damage his apartment just by fighting in it. Stop, he shouted, but they ignored him. Lyra threw Kira across the room. Kira hit the wall hard enough to crack the plaster, but she got up immediately and charged again. This time she tackled Lyra through the coffee table. The fight lasted only a few minutes, but it felt much longer to Jake. When it ended, Lyra was sitting on top of Kira, holding her down. Both of them were breathing hard and their skin was glowing brightly. "I told you to leave," Lyra said. Kira stopped struggling. "Fine, but Commander Zeth will not be happy about this." "I do not care what the commander thinks." Kira looked at Jake. "You have no idea what you are dealing with, human. She will get worse before this is over." After Kira left, Jake looked around his destroyed living room. His furniture was broken, his walls were cracked, and everything was covered in a fine, blue dust that seemed to come from the Zephyrian's skin. "I am sorry about your things," Lyra said. She looked embarrassed and tired. "It's okay," Jake said, though he was not sure it really was okay. "Are you hurt?" "No." Kira was not trying to seriously harm me. She was just trying to force me to come with her. Jake sat down on what was left of his couch. "Lyra, maybe she's right. Maybe this is too dangerous. Are you asking me to leave?" Jake looked at her. Even after the fight, even though she looked more alien than ever, he did not want her to go. Over the past few months, he had gotten used to having her around. She was his friend. "No," he said. "I'm not asking you to leave, but I need to understand what we're dealing with here. How much worse is this going to get?" Lyra sat down next to him, careful not to touch him. "I do not know. No Zephyrian has ever gone through the awakening away from our home world. I am experiencing things that have never been documented." "What kind of things?" "The territorial feelings are much stronger than they should be. At home, we would have large spaces to claim. Here, I have claimed your entire apartment and I still feel cramped. And the protective instincts." "Protective instincts?" "I want to keep you safe from everything. When Kira was here, all I could think about was getting her away from you. Not because she was threatening me, but because she might hurt you." Jake thought about this. "Is that normal?" "No. During the awakening, we usually become protective of potential mates, not of friends from other species. But you have been so kind to me, so accepting. My biology seems to have decided you are someone worth protecting." That night, Jake called Amy and told her what had happened. "Jake, you need to get out of there," Amy said immediately. "I can't just abandon her. She doesn't have anywhere else to go. She just destroyed your apartment in a fight with another alien. This is exactly what I was worried about. But she wasn't fighting me. She was protecting me. This time. What about next time?" Jake looked around his damaged living room. Amy had a point, but when he thought about leaving Lyra alone during this crisis, it felt wrong. "Let me try something first," he said. The next day, Jake went to a hardware store and bought materials to reinforce one of the bedrooms. If Lyra needed a safe space to go through her changes, he would make one for her. He spent the weekend installing metal sheets on the walls and replacing the regular door with a heavier one. He added extra padding to the floor and walls so Lyra could not hurt herself if she lost control. When Lyra saw what he had done, her glowing eyes got very bright. "You made this for me?" she asked. "I figured you might need a safe space when things get intense. Somewhere you can let loose without worrying about breaking anything or hurting anyone." Lyra walked into the reinforced room and ran her hands along the padded walls. "This is very thoughtful. Thank you. There's also a communication system." Jake showed her a small intercom device. "So we can talk even when you're in here." That night, Lyra used the room for the first time. Jake heard loud sounds through the walls, banging and scraping and what sounded like roaring. But the reinforced room held up. In the morning, Lyra emerged, looking tired, but more relaxed than she had in days. "How do you feel?" Jake asked. "Better. It helped to have a place where I could express the physical energy without worrying about consequences." Over the next few days, they developed a routine. When Lyra felt the aggressive urges getting too strong, she would go into the safe room. Jake would talk to her through the intercom, helping her stay calm and focused. He started to notice patterns in her behavior. The intense episodes usually happened in the evening and lasted for a few hours. During the day, she was more like her normal self, though still physically changed. "Tell me about your emotions right now," Jake said one evening as Lyra paced around the reinforced room. "Everything is too much," she said through the intercom. I want to fight something or protect something or claim something. The urges are very strong. What helps you feel better? Talking to you helps. Your voice is calming. Jake was surprised by this. Really? Yes. I do not understand why, but when I hear your voice, the aggressive feelings become less intense. They started spending more time talking during her difficult periods. Jake would sit outside the reinforced room and they would have conversations through the intercom. He told her stories about his childhood, his work, his dreams for the future. She shared memories of her home world and her family. Slowly, Jake began to understand that the awakening was not just about aggression and territory. It was about connection and bonding. Lyra's biology was driving her to form deep relationships, but there were no other Zephyrians around for her to bond with. What would normally happen during the awakening? He asked one evening. We would find others who were also going through the change. We would form groups, compete for territory and mates, establish relationships that would last for the next 7 years. And now I have only you. My biology is trying to adapt, but it is confused. You are not Zephyrian, so I cannot mate with you. But you are here, and you are kind to me. So my instincts want to protect and bond with you anyway. Jake thought about this. Is that why talking to me helps calm you down? I think so. When we talk, it satisfies some of the bonding urges without requiring physical interaction. A few days later, Jake came home to find Lyra sitting quietly in the living room. She looked different again. Her skin was still bright blue, but the glow had gotten softer. Her eyes were still large and silver, but they did not seem as intense. How was your day? He asked. Better, she said. I think the worst of it may be over. Really? The aggressive urges are getting weaker. I still feel the need to protect my territory, but it is not overwhelming anymore. Jake sat down across from her. What changed? Lyra looked at him thoughtfully. I think my biology has accepted the situation. I cannot have a traditional awakening, so it is adapting to what is available. What does that mean? It means I am bonding with you, but not in the way my people usually bond during the awakening. It is something new. Jake felt his heart beat faster. What kind of bond? I am not sure yet. It is not romantic because you are not Zephyrian. But it is deeper than friendship. You have helped me through the most difficult time in my life. My biology recognizes that as significant. That evening, Jake got a call from Ryan. How are things going with your alien roommate situation? Ryan asked. Jake looked over at Lyra, who was reading on the couch. She looked almost normal except for the bright blue skin and glowing eyes. Better than I expected, Jake said. We're figuring it out. That's good to hear. I was worried about you. Thanks. But I think we're past the worst of it now. As Jake hung up the phone, he realized that something had changed in how he thought about the situation. A few weeks ago, he had been scared and confused. Now, even though Lyra still looked alien and the apartment still smelled strange, he felt comfortable. They had been through a crisis together and come out stronger on the other side. That night, as Jake was getting ready for bed, Lyra knocked on his door. Thank you, she said when he opened it. For what? For not giving up on me. For making the safe room. For talking to me during the difficult times. For accepting me even when I was not myself. You would have done the same for me, Jake said. Lyra smiled, and for the first time since the awakening started, it looked completely natural. Yes, she said, I would have. 2 weeks after Lyra's condition had stabilized, Jake was woken up by loud voices outside his apartment. He looked out the window and saw 3 Zephyrian ships landing in the street below. Lyra, he called out. She emerged from her room, moving quickly. Her appearance had continued to change over the past few days. She was still taller and more muscular than when she first moved in, but her skin had faded to a softer blue. Her eyes were still large and silver, but they no longer glowed. They have come for me, she said, looking out the window. Who? My commander, and probably others from my government. There was a loud knock at the door. Jake opened it to find a tall Zephyrian in what looked like a military uniform. His skin was dark green and his eyes were cold. "I am Commander Zeth," he said. "I am here for Lyra." "She's right here," Jake said, stepping aside. Commander Zeth entered the apartment and looked around at the damaged furniture and reinforced bedroom. His expression was unreadable. "Lyra," he said, "you were ordered to return to the ship when your awakening began." "I chose to remain here," Lyra replied. "That choice was not yours to make. You put yourself and this human in danger." "No one was harmed," Commander Zeth looked at Jake. "Human, you do not understand what you have been living with. A Zephyrian during the awakening is extremely dangerous. You are lucky to be alive." "Lyra never threatened me," Jake said. "Not intentionally. But our biology during this time is unpredictable. We have never had a successful case of a Zephyrian completing the awakening in the presence of another species." "Well, now you do," Lyra said firmly. Commander Zeth stared at her for a long moment. "Come with me. We need to discuss this privately." "No," Lyra said. "Jake has been part of this experience from the beginning. He deserves to know the truth." "What? Truth?" Jake asked. Lyra looked at Commander Zeth, then back at Jake. "I was not sent to Earth just to study human cities." "What do you mean?" "I volunteered for a special research project. My government wanted to know if other species could help Zephyrians through the awakening." Jake felt confused. "Help how?" Commander Zeth spoke before Lyra could answer. "Our species has been having problems with the awakening cycle for the past century. The aggressive behaviors have been getting stronger and more dangerous. Many Zephyrians are seriously hurt or killed during their awakening periods. We believe it is because our society has become too controlled," Lyra continued. "On our home world, we live in cities now instead of natural environments. During the awakening, we have less space for territory and fewer options for forming bonds. This makes the biological urges more intense and harder to manage." "So, what does that have to do with me?" Lyra's research was supposed to test whether contact with other species might help moderate our awakening responses, Commander Zeth said. "It was considered extremely dangerous and probably impossible. But it worked," Lyra said, looking at Jake. "Being around you, talking to you, having your support during the difficult times, it made the awakening manageable." Jake sat down heavily on his damaged couch. "So this was all an experiment?" "It started as an experiment," Lyra admitted. "But it became much more than that. You became my friend. You helped me when I needed help. That was real." Commander Zeth was studying Jake with interest. "Human, can you describe what it was like living with Lyra during her awakening?" "Scary at first," Jake said honestly. "But once I understood what was happening, it was just a matter of being patient and supportive." "Were you ever afraid she would hurt you?" "Sometimes, but not because of anything she did, just because the situation was unknown." "And you chose to stay with her instead of leaving or asking her to leave?" "Yes." Commander Zeth exchanged a look with Lyra. "This is remarkable." "What's remarkable?" "Most species, when faced with aggressive behavior from another species, respond with fear or aggression in return. This makes the situation worse. But you responded with compassion and problem-solving." "That's just normal human behavior," Jake said. "No," Lyra said softly. "It is not normal for most species. That is what makes humans special." Commander Zeth activated a device that projected a holographic display. "Over the past few weeks, we have been monitoring Lyra's biological responses remotely. The data shows that her stress hormones decreased significantly whenever she was talking to you." Jake looked at the display. Even though he could not read the alien text, he could see patterns in the data that showed clear changes over time. "More importantly," Commander Zeth continued, "her aggression levels remained much lower than we have ever recorded for a Zephyrian during the awakening." "What does this mean?" Jake asked. "It means that your presence had a stabilizing effect on her biology. Somehow your human emotional responses were able to influence her Zephyrian biological processes." "How is that possible?" Lyra answered. "We think it has to do with pheromones and emotional resonance. Humans produce chemical signals when you are calm, supportive, or caring. These signals seemed to interact with our biology in ways we did not expect. So I was unconsciously drugging her? Not drugging, Commander Zeth said. More like providing biological feedback that helped her maintain control. It is unprecedented. Jake tried to process this information. So what happens now? Now we need to study this phenomenon more carefully, Commander Zeth said. If human companionship can help Zephyrians through the awakening, it could solve our species' crisis. And what kind of study? We would like to recruit human volunteers to work with Zephyrians who are approaching their awakening periods. With proper training and safety protocols, of course. Jake looked at Lyra. And what about you? Do you have to go back to your home world now? That depends, she said. My awakening is complete, so the immediate biological crisis is over, but the bonding effects may be permanent. What does that mean? It means we have formed a connection that goes beyond friendship. Not romantic, but something new. A partnership between species. Commander Zeth nodded. We would like both of you to be part of the research program. Jake, you would be trained to work with other Zephyrians. Lyra, you would help us understand the process from our species' perspective. And we could keep living together? Jake asked. If you both choose to, yes. In fact, it would be valuable for us to study the long-term effects of your partnership. Jake looked around his damaged apartment, then at Lyra. Despite everything that had happened, despite all the strangeness and chaos, he realized he did not want her to leave. What do you think? He asked her. I would like to stay, if you will. Have me. But I understand if this is too much to ask. Jake thought about it. A few months ago, he had just needed a roommate to help with rent. Now he was being asked to join an interspecies research program that could change how two civilizations related to each other. Will you help me fix my furniture? He asked. Lyra smiled. Of course. Then yes, let's do this. 6 months later, Jake and Lyra were living in a much larger apartment provided by the joint Human Zephyrian Research Program. Jake had been trained to work with Zephyrians approaching their awakening, and he had successfully helped 3 others through the process. Each case had been different, but the basic principle remained the same. Human emotional support and patience could help moderate Zephyrian biological responses during crisis periods. How do you feel about being famous? Lyra asked one evening as they watched a news report about their program. Weird, Jake admitted. I still don't understand why what we did was so special. Because most species would have given up when things got difficult. You stayed and tried to help instead. That's just what friends do. Exactly, Lyra said. And that is what makes humans remarkable. Jake looked at his alien roommate and partner. She still looked different from when she first moved in. Taller, stronger, with pale blue skin that sometimes glowed softly when she was happy. But she was still Lyra, still his friend. So what's next? He asked. Next, we help more people. The research program is expanding to include other alien species who have similar biological challenges. Apparently humans have a talent for interspecies crisis management. Great, Jake said with a laugh. I always wanted to be a professional alien babysitter. Lyra made the humming sound that meant she was amused. You are much more than that. You are proof that different species can not only live together, but help each other in ways we never imagined. Jake looked out the window at the city below. Ships from dozens of alien species flew between the buildings now. Humans and aliens worked together in offices and shops. Children grew up seeing other species as normal parts of life. 3 years ago, humans had been alone in the universe. Now they were becoming known throughout the galaxy as the species that could help others through their worst times. Not bad for a guy who just needed help with rent, Jake said. Not bad at all, Lyra agreed. Outside their window, the city continued its constant change and adaptation. Humans and aliens building a future together, one friendship at a time.